how to use Docker to do a couple of stuff. I'm going to show you how to run some simple Docker commands, which is one of our tasks, one over here. Our task 2 generally is running Docker in an interactive mode, and we're going to use Ubuntu as our container in this case. And the last one here, actually second to the last one here, we're going to run Dockers in the background mode. Alright, so that's our task 1, our first task. The second task here is where we're going to spend a little bit more time. We're going to run a custom application using Docker's container. Alright, so and we're going to go through a couple of steps here. Now, we've done this in the class before, but I'm just going to go through this one more time, and I'm going to be using these in my own Google environment, GCP cloud environment. I'm going to start this up, just quickly activate my shell, bring this up here, and I'm literally going to use the same command they use over here, so that when you're doing your own, you could just simply follow that. Essentially, I'm going to be cloning a repo from GitHub, and it's got some of the files we're going to be using for the most part of our exercises here. So trying to bear that in mind while we go through these through the steps. All right, so first command here, I'm going to look at my home directory. I'm going to make sure I clean up everything to make sure there's nothing there that so in this case I'm going to just clean up whatever it is that I have here beforehand, and I'm going to see if I can if I have some folders here that probably might want to go. I'll just start here. I'm going to have some issues over here with some directories. Here's where I could deal with that. I can use -R and use -F over here to clean everything up. Okay, R is to remove recursively through the folder and subfolders, and the F is to remove it by force if necessary. So I'm going to clear my screen over here, and I'm typing ls here, so got to clean stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and pull down this, clone this Git repo here. And if you look at what I've got over here, I've got this directory here. I'm going to go into this directory, and you could see I've got some files that I'm going to need to use later on. I've got Docker files, I've got an index. We're going to use, in the case you don't know, index.html. That's the root directory of your web server. In many cases, you can of course change that. And then Dockerfile over here. That is where we have our Docker configuration, instructions. And as we've said earlier on, if you look at this, configuration, these from most of your command is placed in capital letter, as you can see over here. So the from here is saying pull this nginx container or image from the Docker public repository. That's nginx. Nginx, if you don't know, it's a web server. Nginx over here. Just want to kind of show you what it is. It's a web server which can also be used as a reverse proxy, load balancer, mail proxy, HTTP cache, and so on and so forth. Alright, so that is the stuff we're going to pull down over this image from Docker public repository. We're going to copy this file called index.html into this directory of the image that we pulled down here. We're going to copy this PNG picture file, linux.png, into this directory of the image. We're going to expose that to open port 80 and port 3 on the image that we download. And CMD means to start, to execute this, Nginx, this web server. We're going to start this, daemon, which is a service, in Linux environment. So that's really what is in there. All right. And as you know, anytime I want to create an image, I need to have an instruction, which is going to be, listed in the Docker, text file, which is my conversion file. So the first thing I can do over here is that I've told you that I can run a single task, and this will accomplish a couple of stuff for me. I'm gonna clear up my page here. When I put over here, remember what this is doing is saying, hey, Docker, go ahead and pull down a container image called Alpine, and it's going to just run this container right off the bat. It's going to run this container. Remember, not necessarily putting out the image, but it's just going to run this container, and it's going to execute this command called
GPS
hostname.
signal lost.
So that's very important for you to. So we're going to look at this. My apologies there. Alright, so here is this command here now. As you can see, this is Docker container. It's going to pull down this Docker container here, and it's going to run on the image called Alpine, and the command that we're trying to run is hostname. When I run this one, you can see it looks in it, unable to find it locally. In other words, there's this image Alpine does not exist locally. So what it does is to download it from the repository Alpine to locally, and then they run the command. And this is my hash value, and then it comes back over here and run the command. The command that they run is hostname, and then it comes back and says the hostname is this file. It's very important for you to kind of know that. If I run this command again over here, I will see. Copy this command again here. And I will do this. If I run this, you will see it didn't go ahead and pull it, it didn't go ahead and say I didn't find it or try to pull it from the repository externally online, because this image now exists locally. He just ran the command, and the command here is hostname. Tell me the hostname. Hostname is a value Linux command. So if I type hostname on my system over here, you will see it tells me my hostname. It tells me whatever my hostname is. I can tell what's my hostname, and this is my hostname. That's the name of this particular shell environment. It's a Linux command. You can see it's a rather long name, but that's what the name is, right? So if you want to see the major difference, imagine if I say time. Here's another command I can type on Linux. Okay, it's asking me and say, well, what is the option over here? Tell me what kind of format do you want me to put it. I can put it in any kind of format that I want, and that would definitely run. Or if I actually want to do something a little bit more interesting, I can say date. Okay, that's easy. It just tells me the date. You see that? So I'm running this container, and I'm parsing the container that I'm running is Alpine container, and I'm passing this command and say what's today's date for this particular container. Then it answers me. I can also say, hey, what is the running process on this container? Just tell me. We have this one. If I type this on my own environment, see, it tells me, a bunch of products that are running on this thing. So, again, I want you guys to know that you can actually find out what Docker, what Docker's. See now, when I want to see Docker's images, it just kind of shows me, Docker's that are, images that are running over here. I can take a look at the containers later, but I will deal with the containers a little bit later. We have an image now locally, and that's why I can run anything against this particular image, or even spin up a container after that. Remember, the container that I generated is a one-off, one time. After this command is executed, this container actually get killed. So we'll deal with that a little bit later as we go on. So I can come over here and say, hey, I want to see all the containers, just like I've mentioned earlier on. If I were to come over here, this is Docker container. If I say ls, it's going to list all the containers for me. As you can see, I've ran all of this container. You see they have this different container ID, which is every container each time, but it's against one single image. You can spin off multiple containers off of a single baseline image. And the baseline image I'm using is Alpine here. And you can see all the commands that I've typed against them, earlier on. And you can see they were created, and of course they were also exited, which means they were killed. It's a one-time container. Container, as we've said in the class several times, is ephemeral, it's temporal. You can spin it up and delete it rather quickly. And the names over here, they're just nicknames. They were names that are, like what you would call more like a tag or a nickname. And the name is generated on the fly randomly in this case. Of course, you can manually specify your own the name of your container manually. That's what we'll do later in the class. All right, so you can see we have several containers. Those containers no longer existed. They were exited. It's a one-time thing. The next one we're going to also play with over here is when we have a situation where we don't want them to just exit it as we've done earlier on. We actually want them to run interactively. So this is going to say Docker container run it interactively. I want the terminal shell and give me a bash, which is, see something like a command line interface like this. And if I exit my bash, it's going to automatically remove it. So let's go ahead and run this. Now, remember, I am pulling down another Ubuntu image now. Because Ubuntu is not locally in my directory, you have to go and pull it just like I did for Alpine earlier on. And then after pulling it down, he gave me a bash. Remember, this is a bash shell of that Unix, not of my local system. You can tell now if I type exit here now, so this is my own environment, Emmanuel, right? This is my own environment over here. This is my own shell. But if I run this stuff early again, let me go back and I'm going to run these stuff here so you could see that. So when I do this, as usual, you didn't have to pull it over again because it already has it. And then you can see I'm inside this shell now. I'm inside this interactively inside this container, that is spinning off of a Ubuntu image. Okay? If I exit out of it, I'm back to my own shell. If I type it up again, I'm back in there. And I can type PS just like I would do for any other stuff. I can type day just like I would do for any other other stuff. There are some commands that may not work, because they don't have the utilities. For example, if you type ifconfig, you see ifconfig doesn't work because ifconfig is a utility that is not in that particular, container instance that you were running. So, I'm going to exit out of this one really quick here now. There's a couple of stuff that, we can also do a little bit later, and I've kind of shown you guys this one. So, we're going to just move rather a little quickly here. On this side over here, we're going to be running SQL in the background, okay? And the key thing that we're doing over here is detach. Sometimes you see -d is the same thing as running it in the background. What this command does for you, and I think I've explained this before. If you see something like this, this is just need continuation, all right? In Linux, if I want to stick all my command in one single line, and I didn't want to have to type it so many times, going to second line or whatever, I want to keep everything in one window, I'll use continuation, and your Linux environment knows what it means, that you're not really typing something new, you're just typing the same thing. And that's what you obtain by using, this approach. So this and this is absolutely the same thing. Okay, this is just backslash option continuation, but I want to stick everything inside one, window environment. So I can come over here. What this is simply going to do for me is I want to kind of run the container in the background. That's detached, and the name I'm going to give the name that's almost like a handle name or a temporary name. I'm going to put my DB. You can call this thing anything you want. And of course, my -e is something that will allow me, you can see this over here, and I think maybe I should probably let you see this. We use an environment variable, okay, to specify the root password. Of course, you're being told not to do this in a real life environment because you're going to be using environment variable, to create what your password, would be. Not a good practice, but we'll talk about that later, okay? Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly run this command here. And I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen here. And because I don't have my SQL, because that is the container, I do not have it. then I'm just going to go ahead and grab it, and you can see that is the image, MySQL. I'm looking for the latest one, and dash E here is what I'm saying. MySQL root equals my secret password. That's what I would use for my secret password over here. Remember, if I type this again, it probably won't just do anything because it's already have, another container bearing that name, and it's not going to work. You can change that though. What you could do is I can remove that instance. So remember here earlier on I have let me see if I can have the password here now. I'll come over here and just say -ls if I want to see both the one that are running and the one that's exited. I can type this one this way, and you can see all of this already exited except this last one, which is my SQL. And because I made it to be running in the background, I have my shell to myself. The earlier one, when I made it interactive, it pretty much tied up my shell environment. It won't let me do anything unless, even though it's interactive. But this I can, free up in doing other stuff because I see how this guy running in the background. And you can see the nickname that I gave to it is MyDB. That's why I cannot go ahead and create another instance from this image with the same name. I have to give you something different name, alright? Okay, so that's how to create something in the background here. It's a really neat approach. You can run a bunch of commands that I've shown you guys in the class a little bit later on around this particular environment, and you will see quite a lot. If you want to see all the logs being generated by the container running in the background, all I have to do is just simply do this. You see all the logs over here. It's generally advisable for you to use, the logs that are of importance to you. Otherwise, you overwhelm your storage and your other resources. So come over here. If I type this one, and this is going to show me the process, and I can see that over here. Same for other stuff over here that we've also have. You could look at your a couple of list your version of your SQL that you're using. You can run a command, within the shell, and it would do quite a couple of other stuff to you. Remember when I said Docker execute it, and I specify the name of my container over here, and then I say, hey, here's my SQL. I want to use this password, and so on and so forth. It will just go ahead and run it for me. All right. However, that's not the thing that I want to demonstrate to you. Even though you could, and I actually advise you to go for it if you want to try it over here. I can do this for you and press enter. You can see it just kind of tell me my version. All right. This is the command. This is the stuff that I put over there. It tells me my version. Docker execute it. Tell me the name. I indicate the name over here. This is a continuation. And I say my SQL, the username is root. And I say my password is the variable. And I say, tell me the version of it. Dash version. Give me the answer right away. Pretty easy. Okay. You can also connect to the new shell inside that particular image. As you can see, Docker execute it. Here's the name of the machine, and I say sh. When I do that, it gave me a shell inside that running stuff. If I type ifconfig here, like I've told you, if it doesn't recognize it, it will just spit it out. If you type ps, it tells you the ps not found. There's just a lot of stuff that is not available in that particular instance. You can see ls, you understand the ls, and these are all the stuff that you have in there. Inside that particular MySQL that's running in the background. We're going to type exit now, and we're going to get to the interesting stuff. Now, what we've been doing so far is running instances of cluster, of containers using Dockers interactively in the background, and also as a one-time command. What we're going to be doing now is to actually build an application, and we've kind of laid the background earlier on. So, we downloaded this bunch of files here using the Git repo, and then we got in there. I kind of ran you guys through what is inside this Dockerfile earlier on. That's where we have our configuration. One of the things we're going to be doing for this exercise is actually go ahead and build an image. All right, we're going to go ahead and build an image, and I'm going to walk this a little differently, just a little slightly differently. All right, remember what we're using to build image is based on the instruction you have in the Docker file. So if you look at this one right now, I told you guys what was in there to pull the image down, to copy this file. Remember, the file is asking to copy. It's already here. You're saying copy this index file into this part of the image, and then copy this linux.png into this part of the image. Okay, and it says expose port 80 and 443, which is web browsing and HTTPS. And it say, start the execute, the service, and start it. That's really what it's trying to do. So I'm going to start out, but I'm going to modify mine a little bit. Number one, I don't want these Docker variables here because we're using a different environment, so we don't need it. The tag is what allowed me to specify the name that I want. So dash tag space, dash tag, and I says this is the name of my, container. Sorry, my image, and I'm using, I'm saying colon 1.0. That is to say that's the first image I'm going to have, and I put a space here. There's a space, and I said period, and I said run it from this current directory. And this is very important because this is a directory that has this configuration file, Dockerfile. If I run this command and I have to, and it's not, and this Dockerfile is not in this directory, then I need to specify the directory, right? So I'm going to go ahead and build an image right now, and it's going to pull. You can see. So what I've done over here is to, build an image, tag it over here, and it came over here, sending build context. It didn't have to pull down too much because I already have Nginx locally, so it's just kind of like, pulling down some of this file really quick. What else do I have? Then he executed the first thing I saw it on the list, which is pulling from this library, checked it is correct, then went on and do the second task on the list, which is 2 of 5. Copy this file over here. The third one, 3 of 5, copy this picture file into this directory, and it says expose port 80, 443, and then execute it. You can see it's just running this almost verbatim, according to the instruction that's stored in this Docker file. It's very important you need to remember that, but that's how you are able to, get most of these to work the way you are designed it. Extremely important, alright? So now that I've built an image, I'm going to do one more thing here. Well, more than one more thing. I'm going to actually, and I will do this in a way that will allow you to see what it is I'm doing. So I wanted to see it as a single line instead of the continuation that might makes it looks more complicated than this. So what I'm doing over here is to run a Docker container in a background dash, and I'm saying, open map port 80 internal to port 80 external, and I say name the name of the container Linux Street app, and I'm going to change this one over here because the name of my image, base image, is this. It's important for you to know that, and there is something over here that you need to remember. Any external traffic coming into the server on port 80 will now directed to the container on port 80. So again, this is something you need to be very aware of. So and we will demonstrate that a little bit later in our session over here. So I'm going to run this over here, and let's say I want this one to be say 3000, okay, which means I'm running a container in the background, and I'm saying port 3000 on my local shell environment here should be mapped to port 80 on this image. And if you do this, now it's running. Now I can go and browse that on port 3000. I can specify 3000 here, and I can say change and preview. And I need to kind of go back into this. So just quickly check this out. Now you can see I'm viewing that Docker environment now. It's important, however, to remember that the first port number you're specifying here, that's your local port, and the one afterwards is your port on the Docker image. All right. So that's it. We've just run an application here. Everything looks hunky-dory. Now, there's something that I will ask you to never forget. This is very important. You know, this is very, very, very important. Whatever it is you do, you need to be able to clean up after yourself. And so, having run this, if I want to kind of kill this thing, I need to be able to. And by the way, let me run this again. Docker images. You can see that this is a Linux tweet app that we created earlier on. We call it version 1. You can see it's here. It's running. It's about 226 megabytes. And these are the other MySQL that we ran earlier on, Nginx, you know, Ubuntu, Alpine, so all the stuff that we've downloaded. All this image running in my local system here. All right. Very, very important that you should remember that. Now, if I want to kill this let's see, Docker containers. You can see I have 2 containers running over here. You know, this is about running continually. You know, this is a part of that map. You know, 3000 to port 3 to port 80, and I have these 2 stuff over here. Now, oftentimes you're going to run a container and you want to kill it. And here is I'm just going to run Docker container, remove by force if necessary. And I say Linux app. Where's my container called Linux app? You can see it over here. That's it. And when I press enter here, that thing is gone. If I run this command again, sorry, I only got one container running, and even this one I can kill it. Let's go back here and kill this one. So if I just come over here and say mydb, just like that. It's very important you remember how to kill a container, because you're going to need to do something, you want to create something else, and then you're going to run into trouble if you don't know how to do that. Alright, so what if I don't want my website to look like this? What if I ask you guys to create a website with a more interesting picture? Say, I ask you guys to go grab a picture of penguin or something, or whatever. I don't know if I have any interesting pictures on my container. Or if I ask you guys to have a picture of something like this, right? Now, that may be something that you want to use. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to create this picture. I'm going to call it group. I'm going to rename it. You always want something a little more smaller, a little bit more interesting. A little bit more easy name to kind of deal with. If you have a really long name, then you're going to have to be typing it all through. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to try and see if I can upload this file. The reason I want to upload the file, see over here, come over this three-dotted line called upload file, and I'm just going to go to group here, looking for the file group. There you go. Alright, now I have, I'm going to get out of here. Alright, so I have a power file called group.jpg. I'm going to cp, copy it, group, and I'm going to put it inside Linux. Alright, so I'm going to go back over to cd. I'm going to go back to group, cd group over here. Sorry, cd Linux. Alright, so now I have this group JPG. Now, remember, I want to kind of reconstruct my image. I want to do a lot of things a little bit differently. So it's very, very important for you to pay attention to see how I'm going to customize my own website in this environment. I'm going to go to my nano Docker, and I'm going to change this one to group. Instead of Linux picture that we had earlier, the penguin, I'm going to just change this one to group.jpg. Save it, exit, then I'm going to go to index. So the first thing you want to do over here is to look in your index and make sure that where you're referencing linux.png before, you change that to group.jpg. Right, and then also you could come down here and instead of this one, say let's call this one group discussion app. Let's call this one you have successfully created a group application for sharing ideas. Alright, so that's what I'm going to have for my own page. For my own page, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to save it. Alright, I'm going to exit out here. Now, I have modified two things. I've modified the Docker file here, which is my configuration file. I've also modified the index.html, which is going to be my base home page for the web server. And I'll put another picture over here. Alright, so then the next thing I'm going to do over here is I'm going to build another, application. I'm going to build another base image. Alright, my base image is going to have very similar item, and I'm going to actually copy this and show you something really quick here because I want you guys to see this. Don't forget what I now have in my environment now, because it's going to look inside what is in this Docker file. Alright, so actually I'll use this one. I'll use cat and use Docker so you can see what is in the Docker file now. So you can see what is inside this Docker file now. It's going to still pull down these images, which it already has. It's going to copy the index that I've modified, and now it's copying group, not Linux, into this part. It's going to open this part just like it did before. So that's what I'm doing. Here, I'm actually going to be build an image, and I'm going to call it group, group app. Alright, I'm going to call my group app 1.0 because that's the first one of that particular image. You can increase it to 2 if you want, and I'm going to say run it from this current directory because that's where my Docker configuration file is located. Press enter here, and I expect it to build an image for me. It's not going to necessarily go on the internet now because I think I already have Nginx locally downloaded. And when this is done, just like that, see, you just pull down this information over here. Nginx already existed locally, you copy the index, which I already modified, and you copy the group.wg, and that's what it does. Then from here now, I'm just going to go ahead and create. Now if you look at my Docker images now, I have another image that I've created. I call it group app, and that's over here. Now I'm going to spin up a container from this image, and then we have this stuff that we had earlier on here. I'll put it over here. Alright, so here I'm going to change everything up just like I've done earlier on. I'm going to call this one let's say port 8080. Okay, I'm going to change it, and I'm going to create the name of my own. Let's call it group discussion. Should be something more fun. Yeah, we can give it any name we want, but let's just call it group learning. Alright, and my image is group app. That's the name of my image. Gotta remember that. So gotta call my image here group_app, and it's 1.0. Okay, I just made it all this thing up. You can call this any. This is just a name, whatever name you want to call it, and this is the image off of which you want to build a container, and that's the image over here, group_app, and this is version 1.0. So we go ahead and do this, and port 8080. I'll come over here, go to port 8080. Something is wrong here. I need to kind of find out what is it. It's still connecting to port 30. We shouldn't be connected to port 30. We want it to connect to port 8080. Port 8080. 8080. If you already signed up, it won't ask you for that. You can see now, here is what we just did. You can see successfully created a Go application, blah, 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 blah. Now, one thing that if you want your stuff to look a little bit much more interesting, a little bit much more finer, you could potentially use a picture or crop your picture such that the dimension of your picture is going to look alike. Like, so for example, if I look at, the JPG, the dimension of this, the Linux dimension is a lot much smaller, and the other group is a lot much larger. So you could crop it. You could actually say nano index.html, and then begin to specify the size of the file, or you can actually crop the file before you even go further, and that should be, that should make things a lot, pretty neat for you, and that's it. That's really it. So you could see how we have created our own customized. This is what we had earlier on. Initially, we removed this one and we put our own picture there, rather big, but you get the idea. And I put something like this over here. So if I ask you to do something like this, that's what I expect you to do. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.